We're now in an age where one single technology can affect billions of people all at one time. They actually, as a result, cause upheavals and disruptions in a whole wide range of industries and areas: entertainment, transportation, healthcare. A lot of these technologies we can no longer study in a lab. They sort of have to be put out there for people to be exposed to them and for people to use them. And how do we understand that at scale and guide these technologies to more positive outcomes? We need data scientists to help us understand that.
Welcome to the University of Michigan School of Information webinar about the Master of Applied Data Science degree with our Career Development Office. My name is Amy Humkus-Hayes, Assistant Director of Academic Program Development here in the School of Information and MADS team member. I'm enthused to welcome two of my colleagues from the Career Development Office, who I'll go ahead and let introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Dunn, Assistant Director of Career Development for the School of Information, and I'm also the primary MADS Career Advisor.
Welcome everyone. I'm Joanna Kroll. I'm the Director of the Career Development Office at the School of Information.
Excellent. So the three of us will be spending about an hour with all of you today answering your burning questions about career development in the MADS program. For those of you that have joined us for webinars before, you know that my major role is fielding questions and answers during our time together. And in order to facilitate that process, I have my phone here with me to look at the kinds of questions that we're getting. So if you do have a question, I welcome you to submit it to our YouTube live event so we can go ahead and answer it for you. If it's a super specific question, you can also email umsi.mads@umich.edu, and one of our staff are happy to get back to you with an answer to your question. So to go ahead and get started, I'd like to talk a little bit more about an overview of the services that the Career Development Office offers our MADS students.
Wonderful. So we do have a full-service career development office solely for the School of Information. We have 5 full-time team members working to support the career needs of our students. For MADS students specifically, there's availability for all of our services and resources. And so that could be through direct one-on-one coaching and advising with myself, but we're also making available resources through a Canvas course site that we have available. We have a job and internship posting system called iTrack that's only available to SI students. MADS students have full access to that in order to receive online resume feedback, search for jobs or internships, utilize our contact database to reach out to employers, and look at some of the other things that are happening. We additionally do have full support in working with employers, and so doing employer development to identify employers that might be of interest to students, but also those that are seeking the specific skills that MADS students have so that we can help connect students with different opportunities.
And I just wanted to add to that, so Katie is the designated professional career coach for all MADS students, and just a little bit of what you could get out of those advising sessions and coaching sessions with Katie is her expertise and guidance around, it could be around networking strategies or just sort of identifying what are the resources that we have. We have a lot of resources. How do you navigate all of that? We're here to help you do that. You can talk to her about negotiation strategies if you're seeking a promotion or advancement in your current role or switching to another job and you're going through the search process. So from resume development, cover letter, interview preparation, negotiation, networking, everything that you need to get a job and make a shift in your career path or advancement, you can get through your coaching. The other thing I wanted to share is you all also have access to many of our employers. We just had a career fair here last week on campus, and for those that were local, they could attend that, and those that were not local couldn't physically be there. Resumes of every MAD student, they had access to get their resumes in front of all of those career fair employers. So a lot of access to employers and resources, and know that there's someone here to help you navigate all of that.
what I really appreciate about what you're saying is just the comprehensive approach that the CDO takes to supporting all UMSI students, but that comprehensiveness hasn't waned for our MAD students, even though the majority of them are not here with us in Ann Arbor.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how the Career Development Office can help advance a career? So as both of you know, our MAD students come to us in a variety of different career stages. Some folks that are close to being out of their undergraduate degrees and are looking for first or second jobs, and then some folks that have been in their careers for many years. Tell us a little bit about how you navigate across that difference.
So I think a lot of that comes in the one-on-one coaching and advising, similar to what Joanna was just talking about. I've met with current MAD students that might be, currently looking for their first job or even seeking internship opportunities to kind of get their feet wet in data science outside of the coursework they're doing. But I've also worked with students that are kind of putting together a plan of negotiation, of going to their supervisor to ask for a promotion or be able to really start to identify how are the skills they're gaining in the MADS program impacting the work they're doing day in day, so that they can utilize that as leverage to potentially seek that promotion or raise within their current company. And so that is certainly something that is handled on a case-by-case basis. I think in my advising and coaching approach, I really see everyone as a unique individual. I want to hear more about what your unique experiences are and what your goals are so that there can be a plan in place that you feel comfortable and confident with enacting.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so across all of our programs, we have very diverse academic programs, undergrads, grads, PhDs, and everyone is coming in at different stages in their development of where they are in terms of their careers, whether it's just starting out, making that shift, some experience, no experience, completely different career path. What's really unique about our office is that we are very, like Katie said, everyone's unique. We're very customized. We're very tailored. We are a smaller school, and we have a large career development office because our mission and our goal is really a lot of hands-on, customized support for all of our students.
That's wonderful to hear. And so my assumption is that because you're offering such detailed supportive resources on a continuum for folks that are at different stages of their career or who need different kinds of things. Can you take us into a bit of a deeper dive on what the career outcomes are like for UMSI students?
Yeah, and so, for our residential students, there are varied and diverse outcomes based on career interests and goals that they have. And thinking about specific outcomes with our data science students that are in the residential program, a lot of that has been in the tech sector and going into working in data analyst, data engineer type positions. I'm trying to think if there are any other specifics that you can think of.
There's just as our employment rate, our employment outcomes of grads across all of our degree programs is 98% or higher. So outcomes are super strong. Specific in data science, data analytics, that area right now we can say in terms of demand from employers is our greatest demand right now. And yes, that has been coming from tech industry primarily. Now we're seeing it across industries. So we're talking, retail, e-commerce, healthcare, nonprofits, like every industry right now that it's all are generating a lot of data. And employers are out there saying, where do we find the candidates? Where do we find the talent to meet our growing data needs to make really informed decisions to impact business? And so I'd say the greatest struggle right now is the demand is coming. We need more talent to get out there for the demand across industry. So whatever your interests are around industry, the opportunities are there. And for our current students, their interests are across the board. And so specific, like Katie said, to outcomes for data right now has been primarily in tech, but we see that changing very soon.
So that really resonates with me, the idea that data is everywhere, and so you can see data science jobs showing up in a wide variety of fields. And what I'm hearing both of you say is that you have the resources and the relationships to help folks that want to exercise data science in finance, for example, versus those that might want to do it in sports, versus those that might want to do it in a technology company, versus those that want to do it in healthcare, for example. That's excellent.
If I can,
yes,
I pulled a quote this morning from an Occupational Outlook article because I feel like the employment outcomes and trends in data science it's growing exponentially, and so the percentages and numbers are changing like every month, I feel like. So I pulled this from an Occupational Outlook article that job openings for the role of data science has skyrocketed by 600% since 2012.
Wow.
So the demand is there. What industry is saying is they can't find enough candidates with the right skill set.
Wow. So when we talk about employers, as you can imagine, folks might be interested in knowing a little bit more about where our employers come from. So can you tell us, for example, where the employers that recruit University of Michigan School of Information students come from? So is it Michigan, the United States, internationally, everywhere? Tell us a little bit more.
It's a little bit of everywhere, I would say. You know, in thinking about some of the top companies that we work with that have data science needs, Google, BP, Facebook, Amazon, LinkedIn, Boeing, SAP, Deloitte, Accenture, Salesforce, American Express, they really are all over the country because just as Joanna was describing, really all companies, all industries have a lot of data needs, and we are hearing from employers you know, here in Ann Arbor, locally, in Michigan, but across the country, trying to find that correct data talent that they need to fill out their team.
And if we look at outcomes specifically across the programs, there's a lot, again, across the board in terms of regions of the United States. You know, the West Coast is a really big one because that's where a lot of tech companies are coming from. The East Coast is equally as large, Midwest, and some international. So these big companies have global arms, and so there are students that will go and work for Google India or some of these bigger tech companies in their home countries as well.
That's wonderful to hear. So the geographic opportunity is quite diverse,
Yeah.
and the kinds of industries or fields that employers are asking for data scientists is also quite diverse.
Yes.
So what we're hearing is that there's lots of opportunities for folks that traverse the MATS program and then go on into industry.
We sometimes can't keep up with the job postings coming in that are
right. So what as people are navigating their career development and ultimately their transition from student to alum and to full-time working professional or additional schooling for those folks that want to go on to a PhD program. Can you tell us a little bit about how long that process might take? Now, knowing, for example, that it could look really different by industry. So how long, you know, from graduation to job offer for someone that wants to work in government, for example, might look very different than somebody that wants to work in investment banking. Right. But could you tell us a little bit more about how you navigate those timelines as an office?
Yeah, I would say overall we tend to see job searches taking about 3 to 4 months from starting active applications to accepting an offer. But as Amy said, that can vary by industry. Government is a good example where government can take much longer if that's an area of interest to you. So just, you know, when we were talking about your interests, your industry preferences, that's when we would probably talk a little bit more deeply about what that timeline could look like. But knowing that on average, we do expect 3 to 4 months for a successful job search.
And for some companies, so I'd say more in tech, they might even recruit super early. So they might start recruiting for full-time positions up to 6 to 9 months before you graduate.
Right.
So things to keep in mind in terms of, especially for like newer grads, that's sort of the timeline. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about your own timeline and when you want to have a job in hand, you could actually start recruiting or being recruited by companies through us early, 6 to 9 months before you graduate.
That's great.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're seeing with our current cohort of MAD students is that there are many who are already in data science roles within organizations, but are looking to advance within those organizations. And so can you talk a little bit more about how you work with students who might be interested in staying in an organization, but either changing role by promotion or changing role by function, and what kind of conversations they can come and have with you as an office?
Right. So I think a lot of those goals would start with kind of better understanding what that current structure looks like, what your role is, and what those types of opportunities might look like within the company that you'd be interested in, so that you can start to develop that roadmap of how to get there, right? So whether that's through an annual performance evaluation, or it's having different conversations with your supervisor, it's doing internal networking at the organization to see if there are other opportunities, finding a mentor in your company that can really be an advocate for you through that process. So there can be many different ways to approach that, but those would be some of the things that we might discuss to see what might work best for you.
And I would also say, if you're making that shift and you're developing this new skill set that maybe in your current role you're not actually able to apply on a day-to-day basis, Katie can really be helpful in thinking about strategies to kind of approach your supervisor or identify someone else where there's a project need that you can maybe build into your role that could help you develop these new skills that you're gaining through our program.
I love that. I think those are great suggestions, but also opportunities for students to come and get really well-resourced information about how to navigate that process.
Right. And I think, like Katie said, it's really a case-by-case basis. So, for some students, they might come and see Katie and just want to get some resources or some general tips, and some might want some broader strategies. And then some might meet with her to do like a mock negotiation session or a mock interview session. So whatever sort of your needs are, know that you have a career service expert that's designated to helping you meet your needs, whatever they are.
Absolutely. And that question really resonated with me because as a person that's working in the MADS team, and like Katie and Joanna engages MADS students, we're seeing that now. Folks that are saying, I'm already doing this, but I really need a more advanced skill set, and I need a toolkit that can make what I'm doing way more robust and enable me to work at a higher level. So that's exciting.
One more thing I wanted to mention is,
Please.
as you're developing these skills, your new knowledge, new skill set, again, with how do you build that into? You might probably already have a resume developed, but how can you start building that into your resume so your resume starts to have that, sort of that more data science feel to it, or how you can write cover letters, or how can you market these skills and all these different steps of the search process in more really intentional ways. Katie can help with that. And we have lots of resources that can help with that.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about something a little bit different. So what about those folks that are interested in entrepreneurship? So if I'm a math student who wants to strike out and on my own and build a business around data and data products, what kind of advice would you have for me?
Again, I mean, everything would vary, right? It's always dependent on what specific situations are. I think, trying to get connected with an entrepreneurial startup community wherever you might be living can be incredibly helpful. There are a lot of resources typically to support that type of community. And so thinking about ways that you can get plugged into that, you can do informational interviews with other entrepreneurs to try to learn from them. I think that can be incredibly helpful in that process and kind of getting started, and whether or not it's a matter of getting funding support or doing pitch competitions. There are a lot of different ways that you can leverage resources in your community to go about getting started.
And I think the great thing about the University of Michigan is there's such a vast and rich ecosystem of entrepreneurial ventures, opportunities, support, development that, again, we can help you navigate and plug into what's sort of like those low-hanging fruit. That there's opportunities that might not just be within our office or our school, but being a University of Michigan student, you could have access to that. And again, Katie can help navigate that ecosystem because there's a ton that's going on at the university in that space. And the other thing we haven't really mentioned is we can also help make those connections, whether it be with an alum from our residential program or a new alum fresh from a MADS program. We, again, can help make those connections with maybe someone who's followed a similar career path.
I mean, it really strikes me, right? The idea that both of you could rattle off very easy resources, kind of the language of entrepreneurs, right? Talking about things like pitches, incubators, right? Accelerators, communities where entrepreneurs are, kind of what the strength of the UM ecosystem is when it comes to entrepreneurship and the history of entrepreneurship, and really availing MAD students to any and all resources that might be appropriate for them, either here or wherever they live, knowing that we also have over 600,000 living University of Michigan alumni, many of whom are entrepreneurs and can provide that really wonderful advice and perhaps even mentorship to students that want to do that. So that really strikes me that both of you were able to just quickly say, oh, these are, here's 5 things we could do for folks that are interested in entrepreneurship. So we touched on this a little bit before, but for those folks that are interested in staying within an organization and looking to be promoted up, tell us a little bit about how you can help those students obtain those promotions or have those conversations with their employers.
So I don't know what else to say. I feel like I've kind of addressed this somewhat, but kind of continuing to think about it comes down to a negotiation conversation somewhat, I would treat it as. And so kind of thinking about what your goal is, what's your case, right? What is the thing that's backing up why you might deserve that promotion or want that promotion? What is the benefit you're bringing to the team, and especially with the skills you're gaining from the MADS program, so that you do feel confident having that conversation with your supervisor and really being able to point to specific instances perhaps where you've been able to have impact in the work you're doing based on the skills you're gaining, to show that you're continuing to advance as a professional and might be ready for that promotion, and kind of talking about that, but seeing where that might be able to happen within the organization.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, I mean, just having someone there to talk to, bounce ideas off of, help really put together your case of how you're going to leverage your skills, your new knowledge, your new experiences, your new academic credential to your supervisor is really, again, what Katie can offer, because we do a whole series of negotiations and advocating and getting your worth, and that's something we have a lot of expertise in, a lot of resources with. So again, that knowledge and expertise is here. I think something that often stops folks, students and new grads and our alumni from asking for promotions or asking for more money or really advocating for their worth is that just not having the confidence. Right. So sometimes just talking that through with someone, and then also having information and a plan. So one thing we haven't really touched on is that our office gathers and collects a ton of data. So there are data points. Like if you're going in to ask for more money, you're asking for you have to back it up with data. Right. And so how are you doing that? Where are you getting that from? And so a lot of our work is very much focused on evidence-based data. So our outcomes, our salaries, all of that. So you can confidently go in and say, this is my worth, this is the amount that I'm seeking, and this is why. And so there's even beyond, talking strategy, there's a lot of data and information that we can share to help you build that confidence and create a really strong case for yourself.
Yeah, I think the takeaway here is that it is well within the CDO's wheelhouse to have those conversations, and that we can see, we have at least anecdotal evidence and also data to support instances where those conversations or those strategic plans that you put into place with the CDO office, then exercise with the employer, produce those results, which is that you get that promotion, you get that higher salary, or you get that change in job title, those kinds of things that folks are looking for. And perhaps also we hope that higher level of work responsibility that more closely matches your new skills. Right. Absolutely. So could you tell us a little bit about how you're talking to employers about the MADS program and MADS students? So we talked about the career fair a little bit earlier, and what was great to hear is that MADS students were able to be full participants in the career fair, either by coming or by having their resumes included in resume books. Tell us a little bit about what you're hearing from employers about MADS specifically, or just data science recruitment in general.
They're thrilled. They're like, give me the resumes. So yeah, it's been actually fun to really be talking about. So we do a lot of our role of the career development office is doing employer development. It's our jobs to get you all connected with employers. We can't get the jobs for you. We don't place you in a job, but we help make the connections, and we help you develop the tools and the skills to get those jobs and those career paths. So we talk to employers all the time. We actually have an employer relations coordinator on our team, and that's his job. He's on the phone. We're doing marketing campaigns. We're doing tons of communications. We're doing site visits, and every time that we're now promoting MADS, that you can just see that you have this program. And when we say these are people, actually many of them have professional work experience already,
Yep.
because that is, again, I think sort of that significant gap in talent in industry and recruiting, is that having these skills is great, but having someone that's actually been in the field a little bit really makes a difference in terms of the level where you'd come in at and what the need is with industry. So employers are thrilled, and they're asking for resumes. So we're giving them resumes and helping these students gain more visibility with employers really across industries.
That's fantastic to hear. So you spoke to the notion that employers value previous experience, and one of the things that we really pride ourselves on in the MADS program, specifically and then all UMSI programs generally, is the way in which we conceptualize diversity. And we have a lot of diversity in all of our programs. And in MADS specifically, age diversity is something that we're really observing. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're hearing employers say about hiring more advanced professionals or non-traditional students into data science roles?
I think that it's a definite selling point.
Great.
That's, having someone that can show evidence of success, even if maybe your past work experience wasn't purely data science or in data, but that level of professionalism, that level of whether it be maybe a management experience or working in teams, or just having evidence to show success of having strong work performance in general is super strong. And then you pile on top of that these now really marketable data science skills. That's really a sweet spot that we're seeing that we've not been able to be able to talk about and share with employers until now. And so we're really excited about that. And there's a lot of specific companies that have actually said, we really, maybe this is a program that we want to provide access to for our employees in our business operations already, who know the business, who know our work, who know the culture, but need to develop this skill set. And so it's all been very, very positive.
That's great. That's really great to hear. So when you talk to employers and you're talking about jobs and careers, and as you can imagine, I'm sure remote work comes up, and certainly we talk about that in the School of Information about telecommuting policies and how people might exert flexibility about where they work. Can you tell us just anecdotally, what you hear from employers about how friendly or not they are to remote workers?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was at an Alumni Relations Council event. I think you were there maybe a couple last month.
I was.
And they had they had alumni, employers, industry folks on a panel talking about the new world of work and the new trends.
Yeah.
What's the biggest trend right now is remote work.
Yeah.
And so employers recognize the need that they have to really be open to that.
Yeah.
And for a lot of work and a lot of companies, the infrastructure is set up to allow for that to happen. So remote work is trending. It's hot right now across all industries. I'd say more so in the larger industries, tech, especially consulting, finance. A lot of the work can be done remotely, and so again, it is the trend. If that's something that you're seeing as your need or what you're interested in, the opportunities are there. I feel like they're more available for more experienced and professional folks than a new grad.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's great to hear, and it's true. I was in
that's
right. And in fact, I can echo that was the sentiment that remote work will likely only increase as both space considerations and as technology improves. It means that you can recruit people without having to force them to relocate.
And that for a lot of people, that's a critical factor for them these days, is being able to either work from home or not have to up and move families, or it's very important. So industry's recognizing that, and and reacting to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie, can you take us into a comprehensive overview of internships in UMSI? So tell us about how we talk to students about and how we help students gain internships and what that looks like.
Yeah, so internships can be incredibly valuable. I think it depends on, of course, where you're at in your career and whether or not that's feasible or possible. But internships can be really crucial to continuing to demonstrate the skill set that you're gaining. And I know I've talked to some current math students that are really interested in being able to do an internship this summer, and they've been working on that search process. I work with students very closely on the internship and job search process, but in kind of thinking about that effective search plan for yourself and what those critical factors might be for your decision making and accepting an internship, all of that is kind of all part of the conversation. But in thinking about, internships overall, just like the job outcomes, we're seeing data internships across industry, across many different companies. We're seeing those, positions coming in across the country. So there are a lot of opportunities for the internship experience if that's something that you're seeking. I know sometimes, we've worked with students too that have even done an internship prior to starting one of our degree programs as a way to, again, start to get their feet wet, but then continue to build upon that with the classes that they're taking. With that search process, it's, as a student in the maths program, you would have access again to our iTrack job and internship portal, but you'd also have the ability to connect with alumni that might be working in companies of interest to you, to be able to do an informational interview and learn a little bit more about what their work looks like day to day, what the company culture is, and of course hopefully glean some insights then to what the internship search process looks like for them and how they hire interns, because the goal would be to hopefully have an advocate then that can help with internal referrals or something like that to kind of put you apart from the rest of the competition in the internship application process. There are some other strategies that we can talk about in the internship search process as well, but then I'd be there to also support you through that interviewing process, and once you start to get offers, whether it's negotiating for additional time to make your decisions or seeing if there might be opportunities to negotiate for salaries. Sometimes with internships you can do that, but then there are typically other perks that you can sometimes roll into negotiations for internship experiences as well.
And I just wanted to add to that, that for those that are working full-time and this might be a career shift and they're like, I need an opportunity to actually apply what I'm learning here in the maths program, but I'm working full-time, how can I possibly do that? We've worked with many students over the years who have working full-time, who wanted to build an internship into their work.
Right.
And so Katie is really good at helping students strategize, like how can you propose this to your supervisor that you could maybe for a set period of time work on a maybe data specific project either within your office or another office within the same company, to give you that time to actually apply and develop those skills hands-on. But we've had many students that have done that over the years, and that's a really good strategy for those that are working full-time already.
And I think the interesting thing is, even if an internship isn't feasible, doing personal projects can be a great way to continue to apply your skills. And so thinking about different open data repositories, and if there's something that you're very interested or passionate about, or if there's just a question you have and you want to see if you can use data to answer that or solve a problem, there's some interesting work you can do as a personal project that you could then be able to demonstrate through your GitHub account, or create a specific data portfolio to really showcase to employers that you've been doing this additional work on the side, in addition to the work that you're doing for the program and in your job.
And Amy can probably attest to this more than we can, but the curriculum is designed to provide you with opportunities for that hands-on work. So, across all these different ways, whether it's personal within the class or something you're developing into your current position now, there's opportunities. And it doesn't have to look like a standard traditional internship. It doesn't have to be that to get the same return, to be able to get that hands-on experience that you could say to an employer, this is what I've done, here's evidence of it.
Yes, absolutely. So although the MADS program doesn't have a way currently for students to get internship credit, we do have opportunities for students to get internships for practical purposes, right? Because we know that employers like to see that you've had some internship experience, and we assume that you would like to practice those skills. And if that's not possible, we also have 2 milestone and 1 capstone project as part of the curriculum where you are working with real data and making sense of it in applied ways. That then become portfolio assets that you can show employers to say, look at how I compute data, look at how I analyze it, look at how I present it, all of those major facets of data science. Can you tell us a little bit about how contract work might fit in too? So we talked about projects, internships. What about contractual work or research?
Yeah, so I think there are some opportunities for doing contract or freelance type work where that can, if that's something that would be of interest, that could be another way to kind of continue to gain some experience that you're adding to your resume.
And then research. Yeah, I mean, there's opportunities if you wanted to, if you have really strong interest in a certain research topic, and there's a faculty member who's doing that research. I mean, as a MAD student, as one of our students, I mean, you can reach out to that faculty. We don't provide like a posting of here's all the research jobs and faculty to connect with, but we can certainly, again, help you navigate that. Like if you have a really strong interest in a certain type of research, and there's, Katie knows of a faculty member that's really doing a lot of work in that space, she can help at least make the connection that you can start the conversation and get some dialogue started at least. And research opportunities can come from those exchanges.
Absolutely. So, what I'm hearing here is that given how well established the Career Development Office is in the School of Information, folks that are looking, for example, for a contract opportunity or the ability to work on a very temporary basis, even if there's not the posting that fits that, there is an opportunity for really solid advice on how one might go find that. Or research, for example, because we are the University of Michigan School of Information, and research is such a substantial part of our portfolio and really represents kind of the ethos of our school in some ways. Although there's the CDO is not responsible for managing research positions, certainly you can have conversations with students about how to do that. And we have a really responsive faculty who want folks that are interested in their research to contribute to it in meaningful ways. So,
and you can do so remotely.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly right. So can you tell us a little bit about how long after graduation alumni can access CDO services or benefits?
So all students do have lifetime access to our iTrack portal, where you would have access to, again, those jobs, internships, the contact directory, and then some of our resources that we have developed as well. And then career coaching and advising continues. Full access for 6 months post-graduation, and then there is a later consultation that can happen for any alum of the School of Information.
Yeah, and as an alum just of the University of Michigan, then for a lifetime, you could have access to, the Alumni Association. And they have a quite a robust career development support and resources and alumni connections. So that's, fantastic resource for alumni.
Yeah, and that does exist in perpetuity, and I used to work there, in fact, so I can speak directly to the efficacy of Alumni Association benefits, having been employed there in that role. So let's talk a little bit about how you're managing ways in which MAD students meet CDO staff, or ways in which MAD students get engaged in CDO events. So we do have, of course, MAD students that live close to campus, then we've got a lot of MAD students that don't. So can you tell us a little bit about how you're managing that kind of geography of where MAD students are?
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been really fun, actually, to be able to interact with so many people from, around the United States, but abroad as well. A lot of my appointments have been virtual, so trying to make it easy, no matter where you are, to be able to connect with you and have that face-to-face conversation through Zoom or a Google Hangout and whatnot. I've also been able to work with students depending on time zone to be able to provide different appointment times so that it's a little bit more convenient depending on where you are in relation to the Eastern Standard Time Zone. So I'm flexible in that way. If students are local and they would prefer to meet, I have been able to meet with people face to face as well. And then for this year, we've had access to the career fair like we had mentioned. So again, that was something where people could attend or at least participate through the resume book and getting their resume in the hands of employers. I've also been able to work with some of the students that weren't able to attend to help connect them with some of the recruiters that were there of the companies they were interested in. And then I think in the future there will be additional opportunities to kind of engage with events that we'll have, whether that's career education oriented events or employer events.
Excellent. So a really thorough, I think, kind of synopsis of how MAD students can access us. But the good news is that they can access us in a variety of ways, right? And that we're really invested in kind of meeting people where they are, both philosophically and actually geographically.
And I should say, even through Slack, I know there's a very robust MADS community on Slack, and I've been interacting with some of the students there. So it really is about meeting you where you are and what's going to be the easy, convenient place for you to ask a question or book an appointment and how you'd like to meet.
That's great.
Yeah, I just wanted to add also, any career education workshops that we do, slides are always available through the Canvas site that Katie mentioned. And, if you want to do, she could walk through the slides with you through an advising session. But the slides, the information, the content is there because even for all of our students, they can't come to everything. And so we do try to make everything at least available in some way for folks.
Yeah.
They
So the
can't
accessibility
be in person.
is high.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, we have lots of folks that are interested in consulting as one example of where data scientists show up. Can you tell us just a little bit about the consulting companies that you've worked with historically?
Yeah. So we've worked with Deloitte and Accenture pretty closely, but also PwC, EY,
Booz Allen,
and so
McKinsey, all the big
big ones. And we have an interesting alumni network that's out there working in consulting as well. I think it's interesting. We do have an alum that's at Deloitte where they're with their Insight Studio and doing data science as like an inside agency they have for Deloitte and working with all the clients. And so there are some unique opportunities beyond just a traditional consulting route to be able to apply data science.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And
I think that's going to be more of a trend, that we will see more Insight Studios or the like within consulting companies.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And my sense is that what you're saying is that for those graduates that are working in consulting, as an example, some of them may have had previous consulting experience or exposure, but some of them have not.
Oh, yeah.
I would say most
Have not.
Yeah.
And not even through an internship.
Right.
So that they're getting them fresh out without experience. Right.
Yep, that's great to hear. Tell us a little bit about the salaries for data science jobs. So admittedly, we want people deeply invested in this degree because they're called to data science, but we also know that salary matters. And so I'm curious if you can give us some insights into what that's looking like for folks.
We've got the data.
So it's interesting looking at some of the recent data. The national median was $130,000 in January of last year, according to LinkedIn. But in looking at some of the average salaries, you'll see some variance by geographic location and specific industry primarily. For entry level, which would be 1 to 3 years of experience, here in Michigan, that average was $80,000 to $110,000. For California, it was $100,000 to $160,000. New York, $90,000 to $130,000. But then the salaries, of course, continue to go up depending on how much experience you have, and so that can vary a lot. For mid-level, we tend to see $100,000 to $140,000, and then for 9 and more years, $120,000 to $150,000 plus. So there are great salary outcomes. I would say data science is definitely one of the top professions for salary right now.
For us, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to hear. So tell us a little bit. So we've got some folks that are interested in what kind of advice we would give to people that want to change careers to data science, as opposed to those folks that are joining us that are already in data science roles. And the good news is that if you're interested in maths, we would argue that actually is a great step to take.
Yes, there you go.
Because our program lends itself really well to folks on both ends of that spectrum. You know, people that are already working in data science and those that are not. Particularly because our degree doesn't have a prerequisite technical undergraduate degree component or some sort of prerequisite professional experience in data science. So I would say the short answer is being in a program like MADS is one of the best things that you can do. But above and beyond that, I assume that as a career office, you would say, while you're doing that, here's a few other things that you can do to ensure that that pivot is successful.
Right. So I think, you know, depending on whether or not you're currently working or what your situation is, I think even starting to get some data experience. So if you have an opportunity to change roles or seek a new position, maybe even starting with data analyst, business intelligence analyst, where you're starting to work with some of that, so that you can then continue to build upon that with the maths degree. I think some of that also then goes back to projects, right? Of trying to see if there's anywhere, you know, if there's something you want to try to take on as a personal project, if there's something that you can do to volunteer. I thought it was really interesting. Like, I know some math students are very interested in sports analytics, and one thing that I had thought of is thinking about, like, if the Special Olympics or, you know, a sporting event like that is coming to your community, is there a way you can volunteer and do something with the data, right? Even if it's on a small scale, that's something that's pushing you in the right direction. So seeing about those types of opportunities that might exist in your community, kind of thinking creatively in how to do that. I think, of course, doing informational interviews, I've mentioned a couple of times, but I really, it's so important for career exploration and for networking, growing the network that you'll have, starting to get plugged into the data community. And so whether that's, you know, joining a Slack channel, joining a meetup group that might be in your area so that you can continue to talk to professionals. I think those are all things that would be incredibly helpful for setting the stage for then starting the maths program and continuing to apply what you've learned from that exploration with the curriculum so that your resume is getting, you know, rounded out and you'll be very marketable.
That's all really solid advice. And I
I'm
think
trying to think,
exactly,
is there anything I can add to
what
that?
else can you
One
say?
thing I was thinking of, is what are the Kegel?
Oh, Kegel competitions. Yes, that's a good
Yes.
thing. Because that would be something that you could certainly, you know, go on the Kegel website and join a competition where, again, it's another way to start to get some of that experience and participation under your belt.
And because we ask employers all the time, like, they don't have the experience.
Yeah.
What can they put on their resume?
Right,
Where
right.
can they develop these skills?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's coming
they
from
do say
employers.
Kegel.
Yeah. And the good thing about data science is that there are so many competitions,
Yes.
so many volunteers,
Yeah.
so many projects, so many contractual opportunities. You know, there's just an abundance of ways in
Yeah.
which you can manipulate, analyze.
Just find the
present,
opportunities.
right.
Visualize.
Everyone wants, you know, the data,
Yeah,
you know, to help
absolutely.
inform decisions for continuous improvement. From, it could be an event at your church. It could be,
Yeah.
you know, you talked about like Special Olympics. It could be a soccer program that your
Yeah.
kids are in.
Right.
You know, offer it up that
Yeah.
you would work on some a data project for an organization, and then you've got something to talk
Right.
about.
Sure,
Yeah.
for a community you're
Right.
already in,
Yeah.
for example.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We hear from a lot of nonprofits about the data needs that they have, and they don't necessarily have the staff expertise. And so I think if you're looking for volunteering, nonprofits can be a great way to go to kind of volunteer up the skill set that you have and see what could be possible.
And all of the advice that we're offering is really salient for those that are looking for full-time jobs and part-time jobs. Whereas most of our recruiting activity, and correct me if I'm wrong, is likely for full-time jobs. There's still opportunities to engage in the same kind of networking principles and employer negotiation and all of the things that might yield a part-time opportunity
Right.
as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
So I can answer this one actually because just because I sometimes play a role in filling out these forms. So the question is, do students have employers that are sponsoring or funding
yes.
their
Yeah.
maths experience? And the answer is yes. So we do have students that have come to us many actually, who have indicated that they're participating in the MADS program because they're committed to data science. They also come with the full support of their employers. Generally, that support is both in being an online student and managing a job and their studies, and that support comes financially through tuition reimbursement or sponsorship. So yes, absolutely. And we, fortunately, here in the School of Information have the infrastructure and the people to help students that are navigating that process. So in an entrance where you need a form filled out, something verified, documentation sent, all of those things we're very familiar with and are happy to help students do. Absolutely. So it's hard to believe, but we actually are approaching the end of our time together already.
Fast.
I know it's hard. I know it's just flown by, but here we are, the last 8 minutes.
Okay.
And so I'm going to welcome folks to ask any burning questions that they have in the very few minutes that we have left. But while we are soliciting any additional questions, I just want both of you to give me a sense of where you think we're heading. So when you look at things like data science job descriptions, what's the language you're seeing? What are people asking for? How can our MADS applicants and students be well attuned to, or what do you think the program's doing well in so much as preparing folks for data science careers of today and perhaps tomorrow?
Right. I think one of the interesting things that SI does very well across all of our degree programs is kind of thinking about preparing students with the technology that's used today, but also being attuned to how to adapt that skill set in the future as things continue to evolve. So having that management. So like R, SQL, Python in like every job description right now for data science. And those are going to be the building blocks that you'll be able to use if that changes in the future, right? Or if new techniques are applied. I think the MADS program will really provide you with that solid foundation, but then also the aptitude to just continue to build upon that as things evolve. I think students are also equipped to kind of transition into upper level roles, management roles a little quicker potentially, especially if you are someone that already has, work experience where you're able to leverage that and really come in as a leader. I think we want to see that students are, ethical information professionals or data professionals, but that they're also kind of leading that into the management and thinking about, the next wave for themselves and the company they work for.
Yeah, I think that the school is the way curriculum is designed and new degrees become available. I mean, it's really designed with the idea of you're not being trained for that next job, you're being trained for your long-term career trajectory. So when you talk about like these technologies and everything, everything here is always changing. Yeah. So being able to adapt to change, I mean, those real skill sets and traits that you're developing as a student, carrying them on and being successful then in your career is something I think the school is very good at.
I really appreciate that. So when we think about data science, not only are we thinking about how do we train students in Python, in the Python packages of today, right? In the SQL, the SQL package or kind of infrastructure of today. But how do we also give folks the critical thinking skills, the capacity for presentations, the deep consideration of ethical issues, even the ability to ask good data science questions or to collect data. How are we preparing folks to do that so they're equally well skilled to manage those leadership positions in data science or to advance their data science careers, knowing that in 10 years that Python, the Python package you're using likely won't be the Python package that you were exposed to in the MADS program, but that you have all of the skills that needed to adopt that new package while still not losing sight of these bigger issues and questions about data in today's society.
Right.
Absolutely. I don't think that we specifically said this, but just so we can be explicit, someone is inquiring about whether international students can also use career services for things like access to employers and resumes, interviews, right? All of the same things.
Equal access.
Yes. So equal access no matter kind of where you're from, what your work authorization or status might be, we have the capacity to work with anyone.
Yes.
Absolutely. Excellent. So I know that I'm being alerted that there are a few admissions questions that are being asked, which of course that makes a lot of sense. So the good news is that we have an admissions webinar coming up. So if you are interested in getting more information about admissions, I welcome you to join us for that webinar, which will happen in early March. I would also recommend that you email us at umsi.mads@umich.edu in an instance where you have a specific admissions question. We also have an abundance, as you can imagine, of admissions information on our website, so I would welcome you to look there too. For those of you that have additional career questions or questions about MADS in any way, shape, or form, please do always feel free to email us at umsi.mads@umich.edu. That email address is monitored more or less 24/7, and we can ensure that any person that needs to get we need to get to get the answer. So for example, if it was a question for Katie or Joanna, we have the easy capacity to ensure that they're looped in and can get back to you. So otherwise, I'm just going to let each of you close for a minute, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be here to be able to share more about our team, our office, the work we're doing with MAD students currently. And I would look forward to hopefully being able to work with more of you after you join the MADS program.
Yes, and same here. Hope to work with you all soon, and just excited for you all to just even be exploring this as an option. That's really exciting. It's a move forward for sure, wherever you decide to go.
I wholeheartedly agree. So just to echo the sentiment that's been shared here, thank you again so much for joining us. For those that have seen me before, don't worry, you'll get to see me again in future webinars. And of course, if you ultimately become a math student, you'll be seeing a lot of me, for better, for worse. But we do really appreciate you joining us here on a snowy day in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we are very eager to getting to know you all more as you move towards submitting your MADS applications. So thanks again for joining us.
We're now in an age where one single technology can affect billions of people all at one time. They actually, as a result, cause upheavals and disruptions in a whole wide range of industries and areas: entertainment, transportation, healthcare. A lot of these technologies we can no longer study in a lab. They sort of have to be put out there for people to be exposed to them and for people to use them. And how do we understand that at scale and guide these technologies to more positive outcomes? We need data scientists to help us understand that.